Welcome to the RUBSC podcast, Finding Your Triathlon Why, sponsored by BSC Multisport. I'm your host, Todd, with your co-host, Jordan.
Hello, everyone.
And Coach Scott.
Hey, everybody.
Hope you guys are doing well. We're here for our next podcast in the series, and we wanted to talk about goal setting today. Coach, we wanted to get your input on actually setting goals and focusing on achieving those goals. So we'd like to get your take on that setup.
Okay, well, setting goals is obviously an important part of achieving success and achieving excellence. And I like to encourage people to use a mnemonic. It's called SMART, so SMART goals and setting SMART goals. So what is that? A SMART goal, if we break it down, is specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's relevant or realistic, and it's timely. So let's look at that a little bit. And if we use weight loss, because that's real easy to understand, I can just say, gosh, I want to lose weight. That's a goal, but arguably it's not a good solid goal. And the reason is because while it says what the goal is, I want to lose weight, it's not measurable or attainable or relevant or timely. So instead of I want to lose weight, I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to lose 10 pounds by July, or I want to lose 10 pounds by August. So when you do it that way, rather than just saying, I want to lose weight, that's what a lot of people do on January 1st when they make their New Year's resolution. Oh, I want to lose some weight. On the other hand, when you say, I want to lose 10 pounds in 3 months, that's measurable because now we have a precise number. So now I know if I achieve my goal or not because I set a measurable goal. Is it attainable? I want to lose 10 pounds in 3 months. If you said I want to lose 50 pounds this month, that's probably not realistic unless you're going to cut both of your legs off. And so when you set a goal, it needs to be attainable. 10 pounds in 3 months, that's 3 pounds a month. Most of the experts would argue that 1 pound to 2 pounds a week is sustainable and realistic. So 10 pounds in 3 months then would be an attainable goal. Is it relevant or realistic? That kind of goes to the attainable. And we've already seen that would be. And then timely, that means you've got a time stamp on it. So 10 pounds in 3 months, that is specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's realistic, and it's timely. And so that's how you put it together and you make a SMART goal. Applying that to triathlon or to a run or to a bike, it's very similar. Specifically, what is it that you want to do? I want to raise my FTP by 20 watts this year. Now, depending on where your starting point is, that may or may not be realistic, it may or may not be attainable, but you get the idea. You start with what it is that you want to do, and then you determine, whether that be through research or whatever the case may be, is this realistic? Is it measurable? I want to increase my FTP by 20 watts. Certainly that's measurable if you have a power meter or some way of determining that. It's relevant, it's realistic, and so forth. So that's the process of setting a SMART goal and applying it to whatever it is that you want to do. And then you can check at the end and see if you actually achieved what you were looking to achieve.
So thanks, Coach. I think as we look at triathletes getting into the sport or have been in the sport for a little bit, they set goals differently based on what they've learned, what they've achieved, or what they've failed at, right? And it's that trial and error. But once you start using the SMART process for an actual triathlon race and setting a goal as an actual race to achieve, you then have the complexity of the swim, the bike, the run, the transitions, the rest. So how do I apply SMART goals knowing that I have all these sports and all this other, ancillary things to do that then build into that one SMART goal of my race in August, let's say?
Well, the first thing, you're going to set an umbrella goal, the main, the season goal, if you will. So say, for example, that your A race is Ironman Louisville. I use that one because it's at the end of the season. So say that that's your A race. So you can set various goals, and I don't care for time goals per se, because there's so many things outside of your ability that can influence a time goal, especially at Louisville. Louisville, it can be 30 degrees. It has been ridiculously cold. In fact, I think you did one recently where it was pouring down rain and the swim was shortened and so forth. But then there's other times it can be brutally hot, even in October. Now, it used to be in August, and so it was crazy hot then. But even in October, it can get to where it's really warm. Well, if you show up on race day and you've been training all season, all summer in 70, 80-degree temperatures, you show up on a race day and it's 95 degrees with 95% humidity, your time goals just went out the window. And so I don't like time goals. So I prefer to focus on process goals. I do this and this and this, and it'll get me to where I need to be or want to be. And then I've got my A race goal, and then I need to set smaller goals through the season so that build up to my A race. And so those smaller goals can pertain specifically to the swim or specifically to the bike or specifically to the run. A lot of triathletes say they swim 3,000 meters a week, and they say, wow, look how much I swam. And so a good swim goal might be, I'm going to up my swim volume to 10,000 meters a week, or I'm going to up my bike volume to a century ride every other week. And so that's how you would use SMART goals, because those are, again, measurable and attainable. And you use those to build up to your primary season.
Great. So thinking about that, Jordan, what have you done in your goal setting? What are some of the things that you've learned throughout your process? And then in working with a coach, has that changed the way that you've set goals?
So yeah, the way that Scott just described it, talking about time goals, everything in triathlon, it's judged on time, right? So, how fast can you go? But that leaves you for disappointment. I remember my first 70.3, I had this goal of, going under 5 hours. And I think I finished right at 5 hours and 3 minutes, which, okay, is that a failure in the race? If I was only judged on that one goal of making it in 5 hours and 3 minutes and 5 hours, and I did 5 hours and 3 minutes, I probably would have thought about that as a failure. But I had started working with Coach Scott that year, and he had given me a lot of tips and a lot of guidance on, well, what are we trying to do in the race? Well, that race had probably one of the choppiest swim conditions that we had seen in Lake Michigan in quite a bit of time. I was really fortunate that they didn't cancel it. That would have been another topic for another podcast. But, my swim was a little bit slower. But when I actually looked at how I swam compared to a lot of other people in my age group, I swam well. It was non-wetsuit. It was choppy water. And, I had made it through that swim. And so following the guidance, taking it a good solid swim, getting through my first 70.3, and I was super happy. The goal was just following the plan, swimming a good race, biking a solid power, and then, running the best that I could at the time. And I think that was probably my second best half marathon ever, at the end of a 70.3. So following those process goals has been huge. We had set out a good yearly plan and created a way for me to actually attain that goal. And so that's really what I've tried to focus on with Scott over the next 2 years, setting those goals towards the end and building all those little processes that will get you to that big goal.
No, that's great. I think when we think about tracking those goals as well, right, and looking at the reflection afterwards of did I achieve and how can I measure myself against that so that I don't hold myself to such a high standard that every goal is a failure because I've set such an unattainable expectation of achieving that goal versus the collective of the season or the collective of reaching the main goal with the smaller goals. So, Coach, what would you suggest to a new triathlete or an experienced triathlete that doesn't track this way of how to track our goals? Using Training Peaks as an example, we're loading all of our workouts in and using a coach to help us. But for those who don't have a coach or are thinking about it, how do I help track towards that and then help me reset if I see something going off course?
Well, because it's a measurable goal, let's use swim as an example. Okay, I want to increase my swim volume from 3,000 meters a week to 10,000 meters a week. That's pretty clear cut. So if over the course, you're going to have a time goal. So, it's now the middle of spring. And so by the middle of summer, I want to have increased my swim volume from 3,000 meters per week to 6,000 meters, 10,000 meters per week. Obviously, right now it's tough with COVID. We're still closed down, but given normal circumstances. Well, in a week, you can look, did I increase my volume at all? If you didn't, then, what do you need to do? If you're 2 weeks down the road, 3 weeks down the road, and you look, and you've not increased your volume, then you have something you can look at. You can see it very clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And that should apply to all of your goals. If you set a SMART goal, you've got the ways that you can do that, because you're looking at something that's measurable. That's really key, that it has to be something you can measure, whether that be time, volume, whatever the case may be. In the case of weight loss, if I don't see weight coming off, then what am I doing wrong? Am I eating too many Twinkies and that's why my weight's not coming off? Okay, the same thing. If I'm not seeing my swim volume increase, which is my goal, then why? Am I too anxious to get out of the pool and get home? What's the problem? Why am I not doing that? Then make the appropriate changes.
So also tracking that in a way, right? And looking back at metrics or looking back at your results and making sure that you're using those numbers or that tracking so that am I staying on course, right? And am I doing what I need to do to hit the process and the steps to hitting that final goal?
Right. I mean, that's whether you're using Training Peaks or Beginner Triathlete or any of the other Garmin, whatever platform you're using to keep your logs. There's a reason you're keeping those logs. It's not just so you can take up data on somebody's server. There's a reason that you have those. And if you have a coach, your coach should be looking at those and making sure that you're on track for goals. If you don't have a coach, then that's on you. And you should be looking, am I making the increases? And even if you have a coach, it's still on you. You should still be looking. You should know what you're doing. And if you're working towards the goals that you've set.
Yeah.
And if you're not, then you need to make a change or get with your coach and say, why haven't we done these things?
So Jordan, is there anything that you've done differently, say before you had a coach to now that you have a coach, and the way that you track goals?
The way that we really are tracking goals is through Training Peaks, keeping a good focus with the end of the season has been a big change. Setting up the season to meet the one big goal instead of me just going out there and trying to race as much as I can and turn every workout into a race, which I have a tendency to do it sometimes. So
Sometimes?
maybe weekly, bi-weekly, daily, that could work too. But I love to race, even if I love to race against myself. But being able to see the big picture with having a little bit more accountability has helped a lot for that.
So coach, then thinking about setting these goals, having the goals set for the year, what do I now need to do? Thinking about all of the activities I need to lay out to hit those goals. What is it that can help me to really achieve those and feel good about it?
So we've got this goal, whether it's the season goal or the intermediate goals to get to the season goal. So what do I need to do to reach them? There isn't a magic bullet. That's the first thing to understand. However, that said, I do believe strongly that there is one thing, and I call it the one thing that's very important, and that one thing is consistency. Back when I was swimming, my coach back then used to say all the time, if you miss one workout, it will take a week to get back to where you were before you missed that workout. Well, back then we didn't have a way that we could quantify that. Now we do with Training Peaks. And if you're familiar with Training Peaks, there's a chart called the Performance Management Chart. And in the PMC, the Performance Management Chart, you can track what's called CTL, or chronic training load. And so let's use an example. This really applies to highly trained people. So if you're at the beginning of the season, you'll be able to get back a little bit more quickly. But if you're into your build, especially if you're into a build for a long course triathlon, say that your CTL your training load is up around 120 points. What that means is you need to do 120 TSS per day to maintain that fitness level. So you miss a workout, your TSS for that day is 0. The way CTL works, you're going to lose about 3 or 4 points. Well, when you're at a CTL of 120 points, if you're an age group athlete, you simply don't have the time to do 200, 300, 400 CTL, or I'm sorry, TSS per day. And so if you miss and you have 0 TSS for the day, your CTL is going to drop 3 or 4 points. And now to get that back, your ramp rate, because you don't have that available time, is probably going to be 3 or 4 CTL points per week. So you miss one day of training, and it's going to take you miss a day of training, you lose 3 CTL points. Your ramp rate is such it's going to take a week to get 3 or 4 points back. So that kind of verifies that indeed, if you miss a day of training, it takes you a week to get back. So that's why consistency is so important. Imagine if you miss 2 days. Well, now instead of a week to get back, it's going to take 2 weeks to get back. And that's just to get back to where you were before you missed the time. And so that becomes real problematic. And I see it all the time. I see people that would be very, very fast, but they're missing every week. They've got red on their schedule because they're missing workouts. And so as people that have worked with me for a while know, at the beginning of the season, I don't get too testy about missed workouts. But as we get into a build, as we get closer and closer to an A race, the importance of those workouts becomes more and more important. And so that's the one thing, is consistency. Yes, it's important that you have good form. It's important that you're doing your workouts properly. But if you're not consistent, you will not have success, period.
Yeah. And knowing that most of us have day jobs and families and things that pull us away, staying consistent, you need to practice it, right? It's something that you have to practice and become part of your habits, or else it's easy to fall out to those 2 and 3 days missed, and you can find excuses. I know that I've found some success in consistent approach, and then if I missed a day, I didn't freak out, but I made sure that I then returned to that consistency right after that in the next day, through that next week and through the following weeks, and worked with you as my coach as to how do we still hit that goal, and how do we still make sure we're maintaining the smaller goals, getting to that big goal, but staying consistent throughout. Jordan, can you talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you do to remain consistent, and how you focus so that you know that you're going to still achieve your goals?
So consistency is the thing that I love to work on the most with triathlon, because it's not just about the race. It is really about, the lifestyle, staying healthy, staying fit, creating a good dialogue and a good schedule within your family environment is the most important part. For me to find when I'm going to hit my workouts, those workouts have to be in the morning. A few years ago, I was not an early riser. I was not one of those, I'm going to wake up super early and, get a workout in. I always like to, I'm going to just go to the gym after I get home from work. Well, as kids get older, kids have activities. That definitely did not fit. And I first started just swimming in the morning. I liked swimming, but, you could not get me running at 4 a.m. Now, I don't even set an alarm, and at 4:15, I'm up ready to go. Setting that workout schedule with the family, and then, with Coach Scott, he knows, okay, if important workouts, they're going to be done in the morning. Sometimes I will have like a easier run in the afternoon, maybe short, maybe, 20, 30 minutes. Especially as I need to build a little bit of volume going into like a longer race, I can get that in. But if there's a key, threshold bike, it's not going to happen after work. That won't work. It's not going to work with my family. So being able to have a realistic process to keep that consistency going is important. The other thing is just creating it a fun family environment. I have, now I have 4 boys. The youngest being a week and a half old is probably not running with me yet. That will come soon. But Joshua, our oldest, you cannot keep him from running or biking. And so, going out with him and getting those runs in with him, even if he does beat me down the street sprint on the way back home most of the time, it helps to create just a good environment and keeps me active and consistent.
So, Coach, one of the things that worked to my advantage last year with a heavy travel schedule for work was staying consistent and not finding excuses during my travel. One of the things that you said to me that really stuck early on when we worked together that first year in Training Peaks was that you didn't want to see the Christmas tree, the green, red, yellow, and every color in between. So that stuck with me, and I think everyone needs to find a way to motivate through some kind of personal achievement with consistency, and that drive to see green all the time on the schedule, it definitely helped me stay consistent. So I removed excuses by putting things in place during my travel where I had my gear, I had the opportunity, I found the pool or I found the gym, I had the opportunity to find a trail while I was traveling, and then I didn't have the excuse. I actually had the motivation to say, at the end of the day, I want to see green. So that helped a lot. And I think that's part of it too, is finding that personal way to make motivation a habit.
Right. It's important to understand, especially for age group triathletes, life happens. There are going to be times when you're going to miss a workout. Kids get sick, work demands arise. But it's like you said, if you find a way to minimize the excuses and don't give yourself permission to just arbitrarily say it's okay if I miss that workout. If you miss a workout and it happens, then you missed a workout. Move on from it and let it go. But to your point, if you look ahead, and I think I had you write an article for this for our blog, because you're so successful at that. And basically that's what you said. You find a way to get the workouts done. It's a state of mind. And Jordan made a comment earlier about it becomes a lifestyle, and it is a lifestyle. And part of that lifestyle, if you're striving for excellence, is finding a way to make the workouts work. And that's people that I work with, they hear that all the time, striving for excellence. However you're defining personal excellence, that's what we're striving for. And so a big part of that to get there is going to be consistency and just removing the barriers to achieve that.
It's funny that you say striving for excellence because we're on the topic of consistency. It's almost like shifting the mindset to striving for consistency, which then will drive excellence.
Right.
Because if you're consistent and you're sticking to your plan, you only have positive outcome if you're truly achieving what you set out to achieve.
Right.
No, it's great. Thanks, guys. This has been a great discussion today. I really appreciate you both coming on and digging in a little bit more about goals and remaining consistent to those goals. If you'd like to find out more about Team BSE, find us on our website at bsemultisport.com and look for future podcasts on our YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.